just a quick introduction. My name is Matt. I am a realtor, as most of you know here, with Coldwell Banker. I do some real estate investing. My passion is really working with investors in the capacity of an agent. And Grid Philly is dedicated to local investors, try to keep it hyper local with the goal of really just generating as many deals as possible. So I'm really hopeful that out of tonight's meeting, there can be some new introductions. If any of you guys have a deal to present or anything that you're looking for, by all means, this is the platform to share that on. And I will be sending out an email not only to everybody on the call, but to everybody who has registered for tonight's event, recapping and putting everybody in touch with each other. So I'm excited about that. If you want to use the chat function in Zoom to ask a question, there's not really a lot of us here, so you can certainly jump in. I intend for this to be a conversation rather than a presentation. So hopefully we can have a running dialogue and I'll come out of this a little bit more enriched. All right.
That's ridiculous.
So let's jump right in. You know, I had a business coach who asked me a very, very simple question. Steph, you're gonna appreciate this. And the question is, are you willing to, or do you want to wait for business to find you? Or do you want to go find business, right? Which is going to be more profitable for you? And so as an investor, I think it's always important to ask yourself, are you going to wait for the deal to land in your lap? Or are you going to go find the deal? Because let's face it, there are, you know, a ton of investors in the Philadelphia market. And, you know, waiting is one way to make things happen. Going out to find it, I find, is a much better path. So let's talk about that. You know, I wrote down a couple of thoughts. And the more specific I think that you can be with this, the better. So the first thing that I wrote down is to choose your market. What do I mean by that? What I mean is the more that you specialize, right? The more that the clearer idea of what it is that you're looking for, what your avatar is, what's your ideal deal look like, the better off you'll be. Is it a certain location?
I don't think so.
Is it a certain price point? Is it a certain product? So Mike, let me ask you, what is it that you look for? What's your specialty?
My specialty.
Is it just any deal?
Well, I think it's spotting an opportunity for a key market, as you're saying, that the demographical support.
Okay. And what is a key market for you? Let's get specific here. Is it a certain location? Is it a certain price? Is it a certain product?
Location, I think, is location conjoined with the market.
Okay.
If I'm going to market a particular product, which in my case
I don't wear it all.
is automobiles, then the niche of market of the type of automobile I'm going to be selling, does the demographic support, you know, that product in terms of price point?
Good.
Right.
All right, so you guys, I wrote down a couple of sentences here, and I want you to listen to this and see how this can apply to you. All right, so the first sentence I wrote down is, I'm an investor. All right, that's an important thought to be telling people when you're talking to them.
I think it's all.
I'm an investor.
I think you're doing
The
fine.
second sentence I wrote down is, I'm a West Philly investor.
Which doesn't.
All right, so we've now narrowed the market to a much more specific area, right? The third thing I wrote down, I'm a West Philly investor who specializes in flipping property. All right, now if I'm in conversation with somebody and I make that statement versus just I'm an investor, can you see how I'm much more likely to get what it is that I'm looking for?
Although,
Okay.
for like revenue.
The fourth thought that I wrote down is I'm a West Philly investor who wants to flip property in 19104.
Sorry, Matt, I have to interrupt. I'm
Properties between 1,300 and 1,600 square feet. Right
hearing
now-
a lot of people's microphones are not muted and stuff, and I can't hear you very clearly. I don't know if you can mute everyone. I think you should be able to mute everyone.
Let's see. All right, Michael, I'm going to mute you. There we go. Michael was the culprit.
Okay.
All right, thank
Sorry.
you, Steph. All right, so I want to back up here because this is super important. You know, you guys, you know, when we're talking to other people, right? Saying that you're an investor obviously is important. People aren't going to know what you do or what you want without you telling them, right? I think everybody can agree with that. All right, the next statement is I'm a West Philly investor. Well, we've now just narrowed it down, right? You're giving the information that you're putting out allows other people to give you what it is that you're looking for. I'm a West Philly investor who specializes in flipping property. Well, there you go. So I'm not going to have people bringing me multi-unit deals or vacant land. When I put that out there for somebody, I'm likely to get that deal. Let's take it a step further. I'm a West Philly investor who wants to flip property in 19104, and I look for distressed properties between 1,300 and 1,600 square feet. Now, if you put that thought out there enough, you know, and you're very, very specific about what you want, the likelihood that you're actually going to get what you want increases exponentially. Does everybody understand that? And does everybody agree with that? All right. So,
Matt, I'll just jump in real quick.
Yeah,
I
please do.
don't know. I mean, definitely getting really specific about what you're looking for helps. I think like there are probably certain markets like the one we're in right now where there's just so much competition and so little inventory
Yep.
that like I'm almost telling buyers like the less specific you are, the better.
Ah. Well, listen, so Steph, have you ever gotten one of those calls? And for everybody who doesn't know, Steph's a great real estate agent. We work together. Have you ever gotten a call from somebody that's like, hey, I'm an investor and I'm just looking for a deal in Philadelphia?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, what does that mean, please? You know, like, that could
Totally.
mean I'm looking to spend $5 million and develop a 40-unit building, or it could mean, you know, I want to build, I don't know, a teepee, you know, in Cobb's Creek on a $10,000 piece of land. So listen, I'm not saying to, and I'm certainly not advocating to narrow your options down so far that you miss an opportunity. What I am saying is, as an investor or as a business person, if you don't have a clear idea of what you want, you have less of a chance of getting it.
Totally.
You know, as an
100%
example,
agree.
do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just as an example, a personal example, this year I'm focusing on raising my price point. And it should come as no surprise that the properties I'm listing are higher price. Why is that? Did I just put that thought out there and people are calling me? Of course not, you know, but once the thought's in my mind, you know, it's reticular activation, right? What you think about, what's in front of you actualizes. All right, so I want to go down to your value proposition, right? How do you, as an investor, how do you solve a specific problem? So think about this. Distressed property, distressed seller. Those two things have one thing in common: distress. And the job here is to relieve the distress. So I wrote down some examples of ways that you can relieve distress and add value. I can purchase with cash, right? What does that mean? Well, that means to a seller, most likely you can be very flexible with your settlement. You know, you're not going to have to deal with things like appraisals or lenders or delays. And you can make it very, very easy for them. Okay. Another value offering could be you could close quickly, or you may not need to close quickly at all. You can be super flexible with the seller depending on their situation. Another piece of value you might offer to a distressed seller, maybe you have the resources to clear out belongings, right? Maybe they have inherited a property that is floor to ceiling, with stuff they don't need, and you have more ability to clear out that stuff than they do. That's something of value that you can bring to them. How can you add value aside from the dollar amount, right? This is all about allowing you to compete on a playing field aside from money, right? If you want the best deal possible, you need to add another piece of value other than price. Lorraine, is that you?
Yes.
Hey, Lorraine,
Hi.
how's it going? So what value do you bring in a deal?
What value do I bring in a deal?
Yeah, what's the value proposition?
Quick close, I guess, sometimes. All
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah, so Lorraine is a client of mine. I think, one of the values, in my opinion, that Lorraine brings is, she's not always necessarily looking for a rock bottom price. She's looking for the right deal on the right house, right? She knows exactly what she can do with specific products to make the end result stand out in a way that's going to eventually make her more money. So the profit from her may come on the back end and not necessarily from the purchase. Any questions or comments about this? And so this conversation is meant to get everybody thinking, and I'm thinking as I'm even, discussing this with you, what is the value that you can bring? For the agents on here, Zach, I see, what value do you bring to clients as an agent versus the other 19,000 agents in Philadelphia? Something to think about. Okay, branding. So what is your message? How do you develop a brand? This is a tough one. One of the things that I wrote down is be authentic, be you, be true to who you are, okay? And this is really, this slide is geared toward if you're gonna be actually putting things out there via email, online, in social media, brand consistency is super, super important. And that can be as simple as using the same colors and things that you do, using the same font, right? You want people to be able to, Lorraine has a wonderful company called House to Homes LLC. They do fantastic construction. They have a logo, they wear the t-shirt. It's very consistent with things that they do so that people can look at that and see them in the grocery store and be like, oh, that's right. You guys are the ladies that do, that phenomenal restoration in Mount Airy. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is, I think, the meat and potatoes of this conversation. This is what we all want to know. How do you find deals? How do you generate leads? And there are 3 ways to do this, okay? Prospecting, networking, and marketing. And let's do a deep dive into all 3. Prospecting is you finding the deal and then getting in front of the client. Now, I'll tell you from personal experience, this is the most cost-effective way that I am aware of to find a deal quickly. Networking is also extremely cost-effective. That's what we're doing here tonight. You may not get the quick results. You have to be consistent with it. Prospecting, you will get quick results. So what do I mean by prospecting? Well, prospecting could mean you are driving down the road, right? You're in a neighborhood that you know the values. Maybe you've, invested in properties there before. You pass a property that's distressed and you think, oh my gosh, that would be a phenomenal opportunity, at the right dollar amount. So you can go and maybe not today, you wouldn't knock on the door, but maybe 2 years ago, you go and knock on the door. Or you leave a business card, a written, small business card. I would like to purchase your property, or I'd be willing to purchase it for XYZ. Or are you interested in selling your property? Have you considered selling your property? Putting that in, a mail slot. Or you could check the public record and track the person down. You could call a real estate agent. You know, I have clients that call me all the time. I saw this great property, you know, at 123 Main Street. Matt, can you track down the owner? Can you find out what the situation is? Is anybody living there? Would they consider selling the property? And if so, for what? All examples of prospecting. Other examples of prospecting, sending out postcards. Okay, you might, you know, you see this a lot with wholesalers. They'll do massive, massive direct mail campaigns. I wrote down for investors, talking to agents, right? Calling up the agents, what deals do you have? And going back to the first slide, not just what deals do you have, but here's what I'm looking for. I'm in the market, I've got 200K to spend. You know, I'm looking to flip a property, or I'm looking for a multifamily property. I want something that's already rented, or I'm looking for something to renovate that you can rent for me. Okay, the more specific you are with the person you're talking to, the more likely you are to get what it is that you're asking for. Estate properties. You know, this is a fantastic, fantastic source for investors. I actually reach out to estate executors each week, you know, and yes, of course, I have other colleagues and agents that will, you know, say, oh my gosh, you know, that's horrible and you're an ambulance chaser and, you know, that sort of thing. And I'll tell you, you know, there are so many examples that I can share with you guys of, for example, out-of-state executors that I've called where they've said, thank you so much for reaching out. I had no idea whatsoever what the first step was. You know, I live 2 states away. I don't know what the value is. I don't even know where to begin. Can you put me in touch with a contractor? What do you suggest? So believe me, those people are out there. And yes, you're going to get the people that say, this is so tasteless and hang up on you. And that's okay too. You know, that's okay too. Does anybody have any questions about prospecting?
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask, when using the prospecting system to generate leads, how do you differentiate yourself from all the other mass of people who are also sending out those kind of cards or letters?
Well, let me ask you. And I mean, you know, listen, you wouldn't be on here right now had I not reached out to Lorraine. You know, so listen, that goes back to your value proposition. Now, I will say sending out postcards is not the most effective way to get a return. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is you can't really track your results, right? So you can send out 500 postcards, right? And somebody may call you 6 months from now and not mention the postcard, and you'll never know. There's a chance somebody might respond right away and say, I got your postcard, let's talk. But that's, you know, direct mail, especially in today's day and age, is not the best way. What I would recommend, Ed, if there's a specific property that you are interested in, is, you know, contact the owner directly, either by, you know, dropping something in their, I shouldn't say their mailbox. I don't think that that's legal, actually, according to the U.S. Postal Service. But if there's a mail slot or, a screen door, putting a card in there that's handwritten, or, figuring out who they are from the public record and calling them up. You can call me and ask me. I have access, to a lot of cell phone information. So that's what I would recommend. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I got a funny, I'd say it wasn't funny, it was just kind of weird, prospecting letter at my house. And it was addressed to one of my sisters-in-laws, one of my brother's wives, and it said, sorry to hear about the death of your sister-in-law. And I thought that was really dope. And so I think you got to really be careful when you're searching public records.
Hello.
Look for that stuff.
Hold on. Did you have a sister-in-law that passed away?
No, I didn't.
Oh, all right. Well, that's, yeah. For me personally, I'm a big fan of, the old-fashioned picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody. You know, I feel that that is honestly, you know, the best ticket if you're really looking to find an actual result. You know, but you can send a text message. You can, if you can get an email address, or, you know, I think what you're talking about, Ed, is when people send out, you know, 1,000 letters, you know, to wherever they find your information, you know, you may not get the best result. Anybody, Steph, have you found any deals by actually reaching out to people?
Yes, I have, Matt. And
Okay.
I have to say
Well,
that
do
when
tell.
I first, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
When I first started, I was very fortunate to be mentored by you. And I have to say that one of the things,
so keep talking, I can hear you.
one of the things that drew me to working with you was your ability to speak with people on the phone. And I never believed in scripts. I never believed that there were, you know, effective ways to do this stuff. But I have to say, working with you and being around you and watching you, I learned so much that is not true, and that you can connect and really get to the center of what people are needing and help them get clarity around that. And I have to say, especially in the estate situations, there's a lot of chaos and confusion in those moments. And a lot of the people that you and I both called, I think, were grateful. And I was very surprised to see that at the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And thank you for that, by the way. You know, for those of you who don't know, I moved to Philadelphia and didn't know anybody here. So I literally built my business from the ground up. Lorraine is a wonderful client of mine. Ed, who was asking me the question before, is a client. I wouldn't have gotten in touch with any of these people had I not reached out to them. And I'm thankful that I did. And so, I mean, my point here is it's a phenomenal way not only to build a business as an agent, but as an investor to find deals that maybe nobody else has found. All right, so the second thing is networking. Here's what I wrote down for networking. Networking is building a big list and then letting them know what it is that you do or you want. Right, building a huge list and letting them know what it is that you want. So I'm going to give you an example. I am looking for motivated sellers all the time, whether it's next week, next month, or next year. I'm always looking for motivated sellers. And if you know anybody that has a property to sell and needs a rock star agent, I will knock it out of the park for them. So there you go. I just said it. Who else is looking for something on here? Specific. I mean, is anybody, I know we've got some investors. Is anybody currently looking for a specific deal, have a specific need?
Any deal that's
Everybody's all
good.
set.
Any deal that's good, Matt. Any deal that's good.
Uh-huh. Lorraine, so what is it specifically? Because, you know, I want people to know. I think you have, or what I know of you is you have a pretty specific sort of product that you like to renovate. So what does that specific product look like?
I like old stuff. That's just me. I like to bring them back to their glory. That's just a thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I learned about Lorraine, actually the first property that I walked in that she flipped, I noticed immediately, you know, all the trim and the staircase had been preserved, and, you know, all of the stuff that I typically don't see in a flip. You know, there wasn't the open treads and the, you know, the steel iron stairwell and all of the, you know, very sleek contemporary finishes. And, you know, I recognized immediately that that's not only what she loves to do, what she's really, really, really good at. And it was interesting for me because when I would walk into a property and recognize some of those original architectural details, Lorraine was and still is the first person that I think of. And yeah, so that's phenomenal. Anybody else? Zach, I'm curious to hear from you. What are you looking for? And don't just say any buyer or seller. That's so generic. what is the sort of client that you like to look for? And for all of you that don't know Zach, he is a great agent at Coldwell Banker Old City.
I look for a lot of first-time buyers, just so I'm big on the education piece where I can explain to them, this is how the process goes, and me being on the younger side, I think helps me to say, like, it's a process, and we can talk through how we're going to go through step by step. When a lot of these people who haven't purchased homes before could get a little overwhelmed, whereas, us real estate agents, we do the process so much more frequently. It's almost as, it's a walk in the park with some of these deals. Whereas for them, it's a big commitment. And I think, on the investor side with first-time investors, it's the same kind of idea that, I'm looking for them because we can work through deals together. And, as their, property portfolio increases, the amount of business we're going to do together increases. So even though at my point now, those first-time investors, I find it takes a little more time to work with them because they don't know right away what they're, maybe the exact deal they're looking for. I feel like in the long run, that's a good play for me because, we're just going to grow together and do quite a few deals.
Awesome. And I know Zach well, and Zach looks like a first-time home buyer. So this is smart. Zach has tapped into a demographic. We all know that people like to work with other people that look and sound like them. We're part of our tribe. That's just a fundamental part of psychology. So I think it's a smart move on Zach's part to work with first-time buyers. They're going to feel comfortable in his care, right? Because they feel like they can identify with him. All right, awesome. So the last piece is marketing. I'm just going to say this, you guys. Marketing can be very, very, very expensive, and the return can be very questionable. Now, that's not to say that a lot of people don't do very well marketing, but if your objective is to not spend a lot of money and get a high return, I would say just be wary about how much money you're dumping into marketing. Marketing can be things like postcards. It can be things like billboards. It can be things like TV ads. You see that with a lot of wholesalers. Marketing can also take the form of social media. That's probably a smarter way to go. What we'll get to on the next slide is if you're going to be spending money on marketing, it would be a really smart idea to track your results. Figure out which source is working best for you. All right. Feed and manage a database. All right. So I'm sure you've all heard of a CRM, stands for Customer Relationship Management. I'll be honest with everybody. I'm very old school when it comes to this. I use Microsoft Outlook, and I keep a lot of pieces of paper and accordion files when I'm calling people. But there's a lot of software out there that will, you can enter people's information in and it'll drip. I think it's a great idea to build a list and then to categorize that list. So for example, within Outlook, I have my clients. Within the clients, I have my investors. I have vendors, right? So that if somebody says, I need an electrician, rather than scroll through 800 people, I can go to vendors, scroll down, see 5 electricians, and then provide them with a name. So that's one way of categorizing a list. And you can, obviously create as many categories as you want. Creating a touch system simply means having a system for staying in touch with your past clients. I use something called Nurturely, which I upload all of my contacts, everybody who's in my database. Nurturely will send out emails every so often, whether it's for a holiday or whether it's for, the spring season is coming, or whether it's for, hey, are you curious about what's going on in the market? Please give me a call. I'm happy to update you. Anybody else, does anybody else use a CRM? Nobody.
I do, Matt. But it's very basic. I just use Google. I use it for everything. I use it to save all my contacts, and then I use Google Drive to share documents with clients and things like that.
Cool. All right. Just touching on the marketing piece really quickly, some ways that you are able to track if you're going to spend money on marketing. You can track click-through open response rates. If you're going to spend money, you should do size and sustain a campaign. I will be honest with all of you. This is not something that I spend a lot of time in, which is, marketing, because I've learned personally that it's possible to build a very big and profitable business without spending a lot of money. But if you are going to spend money, it's a good idea to know where it's being spent and then where you're getting a return on that investment. All right, so that's it. Who has questions? Who has comments? Who has a deal that they want to share? I might have a really profitable income producing property. I don't want to spill the beans yet because it's still early, but I can send it out. If anybody's looking for something like that, I can certainly email you privately. Anybody?
Matt,
Yes.
I was going to ask a question, and then I was also going to share that I have 3 1-bedroom, gorgeous units that will be coming up in Queen Village in
They've
about
been under
3 months.
renovation for 3 years. I mean, they should be absolutely stunning.
We did go through zoning to get an extra unit approved, and it was well worth it. We were also approved for a tax abatement.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So my question, and really, I'm sure, like,
I want to interrupt you just because I think this is off topic, but it might be useful for some folks on here. Can you quickly walk through the process of applying for an abatement? I mean, what does that entail?
Yeah, essentially, you just fill out a form that's available on the phila.gov website through the L&I division, and then sorry, not the L&I, it's the OPA, Office of Property Assessment. And they're located in the Curtis Center. So you can go down there and you can drop off your form, or I don't think you can submit it online. And helpful hint, when you're working with the city of Philadelphia, you always want a stamped copy and proof that it was received and that you gave it to them. That's going to be very important. But yeah, essentially,
circumstance under which it would be denied.
There are, several reasons. One of the main things that they do is they want to make sure that the owners of the, who are the applicants, are in good standing with the city of Philadelphia's revenue department. So that's one thing, that an application will often get denied and kicked back, and you have to go and sort it out with the revenue department to make sure that your taxes have been paid and yada, yada. Not just real estate. I mean, like personal income taxes, things like that, business taxes. So that's one thing. Another thing is if there's certain ratios that have to be met in terms of qualifying for an abatement. And, if you spend it's really complicated, but you want to be careful about not posting too much in your renovation and the work that you're trying to do, because as soon as your abatement is up, they're going to improve your value, your building value on that amount. And so you will be paying the price. So it's all about finding the right middle ground in there and putting just enough work that you do qualify for an abatement, not too much that you end up, paying for it majorly down the road.
Yeah, understood. Okay, and what's the question?
One other thing to that with the abatement too, because if you can't prove that you did actually do that amount of upgrade too, they deny you. I've tried it a couple times. If you actually did that update that too, they deny you for that too.
Good to know. Good to know. Thanks for sharing that.
And another thing, this might seem obvious to people, you actually have to pull building permits to get a tax abatement. So don't try to do a renovation and not pull permits and then apply for an abatement. That's a big no-no, and you might find yourself in trouble. Helpful.
Yes, and also you must apply within the same year that your building permits are issued.
Exactly.
The same calendar year, right?
And also, if whatever you put on your permit, they're gonna cross-reference that too. So it's a little tricky. Yeah.
Well, you listen. You can't. The city's not going to let you have your cake and eat it too, right? So you can't. You can't claim a certain percentage of renovation and then want an abatement on a higher percentage. It doesn't work like that. But so, Steph, what's the question?
So the question is, I guess more like, discussion topic for the group, but for people who are newer investors, I'm curious to hear what you'd have to say, because you started this whole presentation by saying how getting specific really exponentially, increases your chances of success. And I guess I'm wondering, what advice do you have for newer investors in figuring that out quickly?
Well, okay, listen, first of all, I think fundamentally, are you in the market for buy and hold, or are you in the market for construction, whether that's flipping or development? That's one thing. I honestly believe that focusing on a location or a couple of locations is important. It really is. If you are, I'll just use flipping as an example. If you're flipping property all over the place, if you're flipping property in Mayfair and flipping property in Packer Park and flipping property in Chestnut Hill and flipping property in, West Oak Lane, it's probably not going to work, because there's a certain, as everybody knows, each neighborhood has its own certain look and feel, right? Lorraine, it lives in Mount Airy. And so she knows, how to make those properties appeal to the Mount Airy buyer. That's the whole point here. So I would say for a new investor, what are you investing in? Are you looking for a rental property? Personally, I'm always in the market for a rental property. I don't do construction. I flipped 2 houses. I hated it. I was in Home Depot every day for 8 months. I wanted to kill myself. And, frankly, I'll never do it again. That's why I have great clients like and Lorraine. It was a great educational experience. It's just not for me. I'd much rather buy and sell real estate. It's more enjoyable for me, and it's more profitable for me. So personally, I'm an investor in the sense that I love a good income producing property. So I think that's a good place to start, Steph. Then obviously a price range, right? You got to have a budget. So what is the budget? If you're in the market to buy and hold, what sort of a return of an investment are you looking at? I would say if somebody's looking for a 10% return, you're not going to be able to compete today. It'd be great. I was talking to an investor today, and she's like, I'd really like an 8% cap rate. Well, that's phenomenal. But here's the reality. As long as there are people out there willing to purchase and hold for a 6.5% or 7% cap rate, you're not going to be able to compete in looking for an 8% cap rate. It's great to want that. I want a 20% cap rate or a 50% cap rate, but wanting something and getting it isn't the same thing. Does that answer your question, Steph?
It does. That's great. Thank you.
So yeah, just to distill that down, are you looking to buy and hold and rent? Are you looking to flip? Are you looking to do something else? If you're looking to buy and hold, what's the budget? Do you want single family, multifamily? And then what location would you prefer? And if the client says, well, whatever location is going to be, profitable, and you're their agent, limit it to a couple. Don't go all over the place. You're going to confuse them and confuse yourself. Questions? Comments?
Yeah. Hey, Matt. It's a
Hey.
pleasure to meet you officially.
How are you?
I'm good. Good. Thank you for asking. I don't have a question, but rather have an announcement to make. So starting next week, I will be selling properties in the Philly market. So if any of you want to be added to my buyers list, please leave your contact info and your name so I can get you added to that list. And in addition, I also work for a hard money lender, Washington Capital Partners, which is based here in Falls Church, Virginia, but we also lend in Pennsylvania. Any of those properties that you are going to receive will also be pre-approved for funding with our company as well.
So are these wholesale property? It's Ismail, right? Or Ish, you go by?
Yeah, they call me Ish. Yes, these are wholesale properties that we have partnered with. And, they're all over DMV, and now we're moving into the Philly market as well. So,
since the topic for tonight, and then, I'll let you guys go because you've been wonderful in participating. If I can ask you, Ish, since tonight's topic is how do you find the deal? How have you found these deals?
So I don't personally work on finding these properties. I simply mostly help them find the buyers. So the wholesaler sends us these because we have such a high clientele here in the DMV. They sends us to market it for them, and you know, as well as finance a lot of these properties that our investors end up buying from them.
Yeah, we'll definitely add me to that list, and I will, you know, I'll make sure that everybody in tonight's meeting is in touch with each other because, you know, I have a ton of people that I work with, several people on this meeting that are always looking for something that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Just drop your email, guys, and then I'll shoot you the details in that email.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And also, I did want to shout out to Keystone Title Services, who's a sponsor of Grid Philly, also to Spring Garden Lending. Great sponsor, great partner for Grid Philly. So thank you to both of you. I look forward to working with you guys and ladies throughout 2021. Any other questions? Our next grid meeting is on Thursday, March 18th. The topic is how to estimate renovations. Big topic, important topic. So please join, spread the word. Don't keep this a secret. You know, the more people we get on here, the more that we can share, the more connections we all make, the more that we all grow, and presumably the more deals we'll all do. All right, guys, have a great night. Thanks for joining tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.
Bye-bye.